Sabbath started by accident. I started building a factory in Hialeah, and we found a couple dogs in the back. We brought them in. My sister kept them. Turned out the backyard of our factory was a dumping grounds for dogs, so they kept dumping dogs. We kept taking them in, finding homes for them. We weren't really a rescue at the time. We were just a couple people just doing what we thought was right. It started to escalate when the veterinarians started asking us to take in dogs that they couldn't keep, but they did all the medical for, and things like that started happening, and we built a factory. Well, we actually built a kennel inside a factory. Made it fully air conditioned, and the next thing we knew, we had 60 dogs. This is one of them. He's one of our originals. He's been here, well, his whole life. Since he was a little baby, right? Yes, we have, because he's crazy. Well, when my business collapsed in 2005, of course I ran out of money, but I couldn't give up the dogs. So we've been struggling along, and we actually had some help back in 2006 and 2007, and we built a facility in Homestead, or rebuilt one that had already been there. Turned out it didn't have kennel licenses, and after we spent all our money fixing it up, we got kicked out. And we ended up here in Okeechobee, and we finally have a property of our own that if we build, at least we won't get kicked out. So we are ready to rebuild this place and make it comfortable and a nice place for these dogs if they have to live out their lives with us.
I found Sabbath Memorial Dog Rescue actually online. I was looking at dogs on Pet Finder, and learned the story of how Sabbath Memorial Pet Rescue, Dog Rescue came to be, and the story of Robbie Coy, who has started it here. And then when I realized they'd moved from Miami to Okeechobee, which is where I am, that was just wonderful, because there's such a need in this area. We ended up adopting a dog the day we came to visit and just see what was what, because Robbie was showing us through the pens up and down, and we were looking at all the dogs. He has so many, over 100 here now. And we just fell in love with this guy whose name was Tiger. And my husband decided to call him Mickey, and he's primarily my husband's dog, so I couldn't very well argue. We thought he'd be a great addition to our family, and he certainly has been. He gets along with everybody.
About 7 years ago, we were at Puppy Palooza at one of the parks for a dog adoption fair. And we found Buddy. He was with Robbie's group from Sabbath Rescue, and we talked to Robbie about him because we had just recently lost our beagle of 16 years. And Robbie told us a story about Buddy, how the people that owned him didn't have time for him anymore because they had a new baby, and they were ignoring him, and he was doing a couple bad things. Can't imagine why he would ever think Buddy would do anything bad, but he was getting into things, and they were not treating him well. So they dropped him off at Robbie's. And I guess apparently he was very nervous. When Robbie got him, Robbie said that there was no hair left on his tail from the stress. Fortunately, Robbie took such good care of him that Buddy was, you know, back to normal, happy little dog by the time we went to see him. I could tell how much the dogs all love Robbie. When we got there, Buddy tried to follow Robbie out of the gate, and he was with him the entire time. So, you know, you could see in the way Robbie treats the dogs. He knows everything about every animal that he has in his facility. At that time, he was in an outdoor facility, and every dog was, you know, loved, you can tell. People think that rescue dogs are just dogs that people throw away. But actually, Buddy, in the 7 years that we've had him, has become a therapy dog. He works with children in the library, helping them to read. They read to him to, you know, gain their confidence in reading.
Is reading time over? Yes?
He also is a dog scout. We do a lot of events with all the other dog scouts in this local area. He is an actor. He's had a couple photo shoots. He's also been on a commercial on television. He is very active in obedience. We do trial. We compete in obedience together. I can't even imagine all the things that we've done together. It's just amazing. We do a lot of outdoor activities. He goes swimming in the lake. He's learned how to paint, and as a matter of fact, he's got a few events coming up recently where he's going to be painting for the public. And I just can't even imagine my life without this little dog. And I'm just so happy that we happened to be at the park at that day when Robbie was there with Buddy.
We want to make this place where people can come here if they're in trouble. we can hold their dogs for them temporarily so they can get back on their feet and get their homes and have their dogs back, unlike other shelters where they have to surrender them and whatever happens, happens. We want to be able to educate about spaying and neutering. We want to be able to help with vaccines and things like that, low cost to people who can't afford it, maybe even food and things like that for the local community. And we want to be able to adopt out a lot of dogs. In our prime down in Homestead, we were doing 250 dogs a year. Now we're lucky if we do 50. We want to get back to our numbers and maybe even better. We'd love to do a dog a day. It's always been my dream. We put dogs in homes differently than everyone else. Other rescues disagree with me. They don't like me because I'm stubborn. I don't care that they disagree with me. If they spend money spaying, neutering, shots and all this stuff and food and fostering and going through great expense, they need to get that money back to save another dog. And they limit themselves. They only do as many dogs as they have in their foster system, so they never get overwhelmed financially the way we get overwhelmed financially. But they don't take in the kind of dogs we take in. Most of these groups won't take the dogs we take. We take aggressive dogs. We take dogs that have hardly a chance to be adopted. But that doesn't mean they shouldn't live. Just because they have problems doesn't mean it can't be fixed or they can't be loved. Like I've been told by other groups, if they can't afford to give you $250, they can't afford to take care of the dog. Well, I grew up very poor and we've always had dogs. And we may not have been able to do everything that they needed, but we certainly loved them. It's certainly better than the alternative, death or living in a cage for the rest of their lives. And I'd much rather my dog live in your home than my cage. And money is never going to stop them from doing that.
They didn't just hand over Buddy to us. They talked to us. They made us come down. We filled out applications. It's not like, here, take this dog because nobody wants it. He really, really wants to know who's getting these dogs and to make sure these dogs are going to a loving home, because while they're in Robbie's care, they're in his home.
Hurricanes. Luckily, we haven't faced one yet. Not a real one. We had a couple little skirmishes when we were down in Homestead, but we got through them pretty well. Here, we haven't even heard of one. We're lucky, 4 years. But our intention is, if there's a hurricane, of course, is to get everybody crated in this garage and board it up and close it down. We don't have enough crates to do that right now, so if one come tomorrow, we'd kind of be in a pickle. But we'd figure something out. We'd get them in the houses, in the closets, in the bathrooms. We'd put them wherever we had to put them. I'd take a bunch of them to the house at home in Palm City. My girlfriend's home, actually, because I don't have one. But we'd find a way to keep them safe. Ideally, we want to make this garage or whatever it is have a whole wall of kennels like you have at vets, so that if we needed to put 50 dogs in there for a hurricane and shut it down, it would be safe. But it's also very expensive. As you can see, the kennels are falling apart. Because these kennels are falling apart, our dogs are escaping all over the property. That's why we have a garage full of dogs in crates. We don't want them in crates. We don't normally keep them in crates, but we bring them back. We fix the kennel as best we can, and they escape again, usually during storms or when people come to visit and everything gets all excited. That's when the dogs tend to try to break out and run away. And today they got all crazy, and we got a bunch of dogs in crates that should be in kennels. And it makes it real hard. When we came here, we were told we'd have no restrictions when we bought the property, and then they told us, oops, you can't do this. And we weren't able to pour cement, and we built these cages to be temporary for 6 months. It's been 4 years. Now we have the permits to rebuild this place so we can have real poles, more like the kennels over on that side. Real poles, cement on the floors, a real roof over the top of everything so that they're protected from the weather, the sun, everything. And there'll be no more this stuff. It just creates fleas, all kinds of problems. And you can see, like, this is just no longer viable. We can't use this anymore. We go in and out through this. But the dogs can get out just as easy as we can. So you can see how hard it is for us to get in and out of these things in order to take care of the dogs. I mean, we do it every day, but with a real fence, open and closing, getting in and out, it becomes a much easier job. This thing's getting worse every time I come here. And of course the tarps always rip, so we don't want to do that anymore by putting a roof up. The tarps become unnecessary. Every time there's a windstorm or rainstorm, we lose tarps. And we buy tarps, probably replace every tarp on the property 6 times a year. And the expense is not the end of the world, but look how it looks. It just looks terrible. Oh, Samson, he's a big baby. Samson's been with us a long time. Oh, is that a burp? Were you burping? You burpy boy. Anytime we put a tarp up, she rips it down. And within minutes of putting a tarp up, it's not like I can leave it up and it takes a week for her to rip it down. I'd use it all the time if that was the case, but within minutes of putting a tarp up, she rips it down, so she can't have a tarp, so she's miserable. She needs, you know, we need a roof on top so that there's protection from the sun. Right now, all she has is her house. All this is going to be coming down. We're getting ready to rip it down. We've already begun. We ripped that portion down already. We ripped this section here on the end, and we're going to build the kennels are going to be going this way. Because our water flow, because when we put cement, now the rain has to flow somewhere, and it has to flow to our lowest point on our property, which is over there where those kennels that are there now have to come down. But all the new ones are going to be built like those, except to have a cement floor. We give them the half houses because if we give them a whole house, some of these dogs will climb up on the house and hop out of the fence. So we do it this way, and they're okay with it. They go in there. I mean, again, it's not the prettiest thing. And when we build a place with a roof, all this becomes unnecessary. Even though they'll have houses anyway, they won't be able to get out. Well, our best guess right now is about $80,000 to build the kennels. And we have to put in a driveway here and handicap parking, a handicap bathroom. We want to put a pole barn roof over the top of all the kennels, so all this tarp stuff that you see in the video is gone. We want to get rid of tarps. They don't, you know, they work okay, but they're not ideal. They'll keep the sun off them, but not the heat. Where a real roof will keep the heat off of them. We'll be able to put fans up on the roof so that, you know, the electric isn't in the cages for the dogs, but they can still have fans. And some misters, so it can set a little mist when it's really hot, cool them off. It'll, you know, like if you've ever been to Vegas, the way they have misters outside when you're walking down the street. You don't get wet, but it feels good. So we want to do all that for these guys out here in the back. And we're figuring around $80,000. Part of that's because we know we'll have some help. We know some of the labor will be free. You know, a lot of people want to help us, but they'll help us with their time, but we're still going to need money. We need to buy the supplies. We need to do things like that. You know, there are people out there, donations come in, they're sporadic, but they happen. They tend to happen last second when everything looks bleak. All of a sudden, a nice little donation will come in and help us keep going. And we always find a way. We'll always find a way. I'll work and just keep dumping my money in here until everybody's safe.
So it's very important for Robbie to receive the funding that he needs for his shelter. I've seen him when he was in Hialeah, and this is where I had Buddy. And you know, it's sad that it was such a small place, that he had so many dogs, and he did what he could with what he had. And that's always what Robbie does. He always takes whatever is given to him and he makes the best out of it. He's never turned away a dog. He treats his dogs like they're his own dogs. But you know, in order for him to really do what he needs to do in rescue, and he can do so much if he has the opportunity, is to be able to get the money and get the funding that he needs to expand where he is, and to be able to put more things into place. As of right now, he's stuck, and nobody's, you know, no one's willing to help. And the only way to do this, to get him the help, is to get the word out, to see what he's doing, how good he is with the animals, and how much better he can do and how much more he can do for all the homeless animals in South Florida.
I guess we're here today for the thing I'm the worst at. I need help. They need help. I can't do this. It's really not about me, but this is something we've been striving for the last 15 years. Hopefully the next year we'll have what we need to keep these dogs as safe as possible, and with your help as comfortable and happy as possible, so we can get them all new homes. $5, $10, $20, $1,000, whatever it is, it'll add up and we'll be able to reach our dream. Thank you.
Well, since Buddy has become an artist, he's painted a few portraits for people. And so since we wanted to show Robbie our appreciation for everything he did, Buddy painted him something. And on the bottom is Buddy's footprint. On the back, it's a little note to Robbie, love Buddy. We want Robbie to put this in his new facility so everybody can see how much he's loved and what rescue dogs can really do. And there goes my dog.
We think they're brothers. Some people in Miami found them, but they already had brought in 6 dogs into their home and they weren't allowed to bring in any more, so they brought them down to us because they didn't want them to be killed, and of course we're no kills, and once they're here, they're safe for the rest of their lives. Hopefully we'll find them homes first, but if not, they're certainly capable of staying with us. Where's the baby? Hi, Betty Boop. Hi. Betty was in Miami. I went to assist in picking her up for another rescue, and she growled at the person transporting her, and he refused to take her in his car. They deemed her too aggressive, but she growled. She was afraid. I spent 5 minutes with her. She's the sweetest dog in the world.